Hey, how's it going? One second, just drop my pen. Hi, I'm back. Okay, so today I'm going to do my thing on Astra, a movie that came out in 2019, which stars. Hold on a second, I'm just in general having issues with pretty much everything today, but I'm doing my best. Okay, so it came out in 2019. It is a astronaut slash space movie of the fictional variety. And I'm not going to list the whole super large cast because most people are not on screen for very long, and they do have important parts to play as far as the story is concerned. Like, they all play, there are pieces in the whole fabric of the movie, but they're not all super important. They're not all starring roles or co-starring roles. They're support. Okay, so I really pared it down to almost nothing, which actually wasn't that hard when it comes to the principles. And starring is Brad Pitt, who plays an astronaut called Roy McBride. He is the son of another astronaut called H. Clifford McBride, played by Tommy Lee Jones. Also playing in here is Donald Sutherland. He is an astronaut slash scientist called Thomas Pruitt. And Ruth Negga, who, if you're a TV watcher, you will know from Preacher, which ended last year, or in 2018 rather. Was it 2018 that it ended? I believe that was the last year, but I'm not going to find that because I should have done it first. I never know once I get talking what I forgot, but hey, I'm assuming if you're watching this, you have some sort of word processing computing device thing, and you can look it up yourself. But she was in Preacher. She was also in, and this was the first time I saw her. She was in Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which is obviously a Marvel property. And she played very well, I might add, a totally creepy, scary, powerful, supernatural woman by the name of Raina, or the girl in the flowered dress. And she was in Preacher, and she played opposite Dominic Cooper, who has been in Captain America, also a Marvel property. They were not in that together, though. But in Preacher, which I just mentioned, it was on AMC, and I think it had 6 seasons or so. She was one of the main protagonists, and she played a character called Tulip O'Hare. She actually has been in a lot of other things, but those are notable. Those are easy for people to already have known of. And if you don't, rock your search bar. Google or IMDb is great for finding out who people are and what they've done. What their resume is. And I don't know if this, I just kind of noticed it as I was preparing to do this, and especially when I was trying to put together the story of the family of the McBrides, and notably missing, but briefly mentioned and flashbacked upon, is the wife and mother of, the wife of Cliff McBride, but the mother of Roy McBride, and her overall appearance is very ghostly, because she doesn't appear. I tried to hear how she, I assume, is no longer living, but I'm just not really sure because there's not much information. She appears in flashbacks that Roy has when he's emotionally triggered by one thing or another, and they're very motile and quick and hard to focus on and over in a flash. hence the name, I suppose, a flashback. And I noticed a pattern as I was preparing this. And another mother is mentioned but doesn't appear, although the father does. And that would be, I don't even know the woman's name, but she plays the mother of Ruth Nega's character, Helen Lantos. Ruth Nega plays Helen Lantos, and so her parents were biologists. If you watch the movie, you'll see this and know what I'm talking about. But the father, his full name is given, which is Willie Levant, and Helen Lantos mentions her parents being on the same ship that Tommy Lee Jones or H. Clifford McBride is on. And so you get the father's full name, Willie Levant, and you even get to see him, and it's not just brief. I mean, you know, you get to get a pretty good handle on him. The mother, her name I couldn't find in the cast and crew listing. I don't remember them ever mentioning it. And so I thought, oh, that's kind of strange. So that's two mothers, two women that you're made aware that they exist, and that's about it. And then I had to add also an actress who I really enjoy. You know, and I've seen her in a lot of things, and I didn't go find the things that she's in because, as I said before, you can look these things up yourself. But her name is Natasha Lyonne, and she has a show that's on Netflix, and okay, let me see if I can quickly find that. But what I was going to say about Natasha Lyonne, she has a teeny weeny part, but they did, you know, show her. They did give her a name, which is Tanya Pincus. And to the best of my recollection, she plays someone that's at a sort of a control panel, so she's some sort of technician. But really, in the context of the story, when they do show her at her position, there's men just throwing orders at her, and she's at what looks like a reception desk for an assistant, you know, a personal, what do you call it? Well, they used to call them secretaries, administrative assistant. Now they got this fancy name, but you're still basically fetching coffee and doing paperwork and taking orders. And I just mentioned it in the context of the other women who are like so spicily recalled or mentioned or portrayed, and I don't, it kind of feels like whoever is responsible for this sort of diminutization of the women has some kind of problem with women. So, okay, the other show that Natasha Lyonne is in that you can find on Netflix, there we go, that's the one I got. Couple of Natashas up here, so let me make sure I have the right one. Yeah, so that show is called, come on, well, it says here she's also in American Pie. Well, I don't remember her from that. She's in Orange is the New Black. I've never seen it, so I don't care. And I can't believe the show that I want to find her in is not listed in IMDb. I will say though, it's one of those Groundhog Day kind of vehicles where, you know, in the show, in the context of the show, she keeps having the same day over and over. And I just saw the first season of it, and I saw that it did get picked up, so I'm looking forward to that. And I apologize for not having the name of that, having launched into the whole thing about her. But I, you know, recommend that you go to Netflix and find this show. She's really good in it. You know, I'll try to do better and you know, put some more information about it in the information box when I'm done here. But I just wanted to comment especially on how the writers of this movie seem to have, well, somebody's got some problem with portraying women, or I don't know, it's just weird. Like, why reduce such an important figure in Roy McBride's life when it, you know, like anyone else in the world, it affects you if your mother is there or not, or the way that your mother treats you. I mean, okay, well, that's that. You know, she's there, but just barely, and it's weird. So usually I say I'm not going to read something because to me, it looks like you're in a hostage video. But I'm going to go ahead and read some of what I wrote because it kind of keeps me more on track with what I want to say. But the thing I picked out about this movie especially is relationships. And I've already mentioned some relationship type stuff with the fact that somebody obviously has some kind of problem with women. And the writers are James Gray and Ethan Gross. Sorry for having you look up my nose. I try not to film that because there's nothing in there, but I just think it's not a good look. But yes, and I can only see out of one eye, and that's why I'm making that funky face. So, yeah, James Gray and Ethan Gross wrote it. I don't know which of them has the woman issue, but somebody's got some kind of problem. Alright, so relationships, though, is what I decided to sort of pin my the focus on out of what I got out of this movie. And so, okay, here we go. Reading like a hostage. First, the McBrides, Roy and Cliff. That's a relationship. Boy, is it. Roy follows a father great distances. It's plain that Roy's astronaut father was light years away from his wife and son, even while he was still earthbound. Cliff says as much later in the film, which is such an examination into the father-son dynamic, which has been done under examination, or has been under examination for centuries. It's actually a marvel that the story even needs retelling. But, you know, supply and demand. And speaking of placing Brad Pitt in the role of Roy is still a good selling point. Oh. Okay, well, yeah, it's a good selling point if you want to, like, make your money back for a film to have Brad Pitt at the top of it. I'm sure, like a lot of people, I enjoy just, you know, I don't mind looking at the guy for 2 hours or whatever it is. I'm sure a lot of other people feel that way. Hence the supply and demand and the selling point of having him there. Okay, he does well in the role, portraying a son that does all he can to follow in the footsteps of a father who's so driven by his own motivations, ego, and a godlike self-image, but a selfish, even merciless and mercenary God. Nothing will stand in the way of his achieving his own ends, not even when it means being responsible for the deaths of both guilty and innocent alike, as he puts it himself in the film. There is a question of a mutiny, negligible. The odds are, when considering the evidence, that it's a justifiable relief of duty due to diminishing capability to serve, or diminishing capacity, and going beyond the parameters of the assignment. The lead up to all of this is played out in flashes, dreamy flashes, none really attached to much else than the real-time events that trigger them, and the accompaniment of Roy's inner thoughts, contemplative and expository both, and reminiscent of the much maligned voiceover from the David Lynch version of Dune on film. The first such effort, to my knowledge, to wrangle and contain a tale, Dune I'm talking about here, so filled with info features and data packets that refer to and undulate alongside the primary narrative, one that nearly requires an actual reading of the author Frank Herbert's first installment of the eon-spanning multi-volume series. And let's not forget, you'd almost need to read the book to get all the influences and references one needs to be aware of and make inferences from thereof that are essential to truly grasp and understand the story in Dune itself. But that's a story for another time, and that's another one that's been covered a lot. But you know, what the hey, I can do my thing. It'll be different from anyone else's anyway. So sooner or later, I'll approach that one. So yeah, the voiceover, as Roy's voice unfurls details of what's gone on before, we begin. We hone in on and. Oh, okay, let me try that again. So yeah, the voiceover. As Roy's voice unfurls details of what's gone on before, we horned in and started peeping in on the lives of the people in question. I thought, okay, the guy's all squared away. You know, military talk kind of squared away. And body, mind, and soul, really. There's this emotionless tone. And of course, a person of military personnel isn't meant to take a tone. Sir, you're just a receptacle with a content to convey, and your opinion is neither desired or tolerated by your senior officer / commanding officer. But Pitt levied an element of tangibly, barely contained emotional depth that I noticed. I'm aware that actors draw upon their emotions to portray those of others, and of this actor's own personal life that's public. Maybe that's the hook for the viewer, well, this one at least. That way of connecting to a performance and maybe identify with the character. Probably for a lot of us feeling a little something for the actor. I know I enjoy staring at Brad Pitt. So Roy too, as the story unfolds, shows himself to be a man whose mother left his life early. It's unclear to me how. And she's so little a presence in the narrative, and the effects on a child are left to one's imagination. Although that's not something that is hard to find in IRL, right? I mean, in real life, many of us have a distant parent, and we suffer for it in many ways, whether we acknowledge it, you know, outwardly or not. But, you know, saying you have these issues or not, you can still be seen to have been affected by an absent or distant parent. That for me feels like she wasn't much on Roy's mind. He just put her in one of his boxes, and just remnants of that relationship flashed through tiny flaws in the box. Tiny flaws in its structural integrity. Flashbacks to motile to focus on long enough to see one or two details and then gone, until some unaddressed old wounds get dinged or triggered. And so, you know, outside of the movie life, a lot of us know about Brad Pitt's personal life, and I'm aware of that, and I'm sure other viewers are too, and I'm sure that like, you know, either enhances or takes away from their consumption of an actor in the role. But for me, it kind of added something, like he's very, you know, his affect is very flat. And you'll see that he has to maintain a certain level of, how do I put this? Of behavior in order to be able to psychologically go on these missions. I mean, if he starts to feel stuff and get emotional, well, that's no bueno. Like, you know, they don't want you doing that. They want you to be a robot. Like I said, a receptacle that they fill you with orders and you know, go out and execute those orders or deliver the message, whatever it is, and, you know, you're just a thing, a tool. And he really embodies that so well, but so well it's like disturbing. And I'm talking about inside the film, like the Roy McBride character. And he's not able to maintain it completely, because as the story unfolds, you'll see why I referred to Cliff McBride the way I did, that he's single-minded in his own endeavors, and, you know, other people, if they're going to help or not, you know, be damned either way, because you're just a tool. You're there to further his own ends. And he's unnecessarily cruel, in my opinion, too, because, you know, he points out to Roy something that, if you think about it, is obvious, especially to Roy. He's going to know this. And he's trapped in that father-son dynamic where he's achieving everything he can to get his father's acceptance or to surpass him in some way, which actually he ends up doing, the surpassing. And he proves himself to be a better man despite the upbringing and the lack of, you know, love and compassion that you would want from your parents. You know, one seemingly just gone, possibly very early on, and the other just somebody that he was always reaching for, reaching after, trying to live up to. And in the cruel way of, you know, Cliff McBride, man god of his own making, and destructive and terrible and, you know, unfeeling, he surpasses his father, and he is able to move beyond what would stop a lot of people, has stopped a lot of people, and that's an emotional bond that isn't there that you want so badly. And he's aware of it too, Roy is. You know, he even said he can tell you what his, you know, lack of feeling is, and in what case, and for who, and so he's not beyond redemption, is what I'm trying to get at. And, you know, it's a good action story as well. I mean, I took a lot of emotional stuff out of it and just kind of worked it over through my own filter, but that's what I do here. Watch these things and really see how they relate to life, and how, you know, in reality, a lot of it actually exists, like a lot of the interplay, a lot of the story. And so, it's he becomes a hero, in my opinion, Roy does. The father just cuckoo for cocoa nuts, you know. I don't want to say too much more about him, because I would like to leave something, not, you know, for the viewer to put through their own filter. But it was a good movie, I thought. He ends up, at first, Roy does kind of go crashing through his existence in the story, and I think almost ruining it, almost ruining himself, almost ruining the endeavors of the whole mission and other missions. But he also makes some on-the-spot decisions that do end up saving people and do end up saving the mission. And he does accomplish the mission, such as it can be. There's a very powerful thing going on, a force that even from light years away from Earth can hit Earth, as you'll see in the very beginning sequence of this film when they experience it on Earth for the first time, that is like beyond anything that I can imagine men can do. Like, it's a naturally occurring act of God type phenomena. And Cliff thinks he can go fix it. Like, how big is that head? Oh, God, I can fix it. Only I can fix it. I mean, he basically says that like another big-headed, prominent person that's causing havoc and emotional upset and all kinds of damage. And there's always a parallel to reality in my shows, my little shows, and these movies that I pick on, because that's what my little shows are about. Um, but I guess you could say it's a happy ending because he finally gets it together to reconnect with, I believe she was his wife. She's a woman named Eve, which is funny because his mother, who you never really get to see, is named Evelyn. I wonder whose mom is Evelyn out of the writers, or Eve, or something close to it. But he does find his way back to Eve, who is played by the wonderful Liv Tyler, who you will know from The Hobbit and other things, and being Steven Tyler's daughter. And just in her own right, she's a talented actress, and I approve. I like her. But he manages to find his way back to Eve and sort of set himself right with the world and himself. At least as it ends, that's where it looks to be heading. And I'm going to just be optimistic and say, yes, it does work out well, and all is forgiven, from the Space Force to the ex-wife force. And, wow, I guess I pretty much am done here. If you watch this, I want to thank you, and if you stay to the end, I want to thank you doubly even more. And, you know, that's it for now. Thank you and good night.